welcome to the January 10th, 2022 City Council work session, our first work session in a new year. Thank you for joining us in this continuing remote meeting format we're using as our state and community continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. This format enables the City Council to meet and take care of business while keeping everyone safe. For work sessions like this one, where there is no opportunity for public comment, those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcast and meeting materials web page. Looking ahead, tonight's regular meeting will include a public forum. Information about how to participate is available on the city's public webcast and meeting materials web page. And as always, other avenues of communication with me and city councilors are available, including email and voicemail. And thank you again for joining us. And with that, I am happy to see all of my colleagues, or most of my colleagues, in front of me tonight. And I'm happy to turn it over to the manager for their first topic tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. It seems totally fitting that the first work session of 2022 would be covering an event that was supposed to happen in 2021. It just keeps pivoting around. So I'm joined today by a number of staff that are working on our 2022 World Athletics plan, but I think Stephanie Scaffa is going to take it over. As you know, she's our lead, and excited to hear her update.
Thanks all so much for having me. Good evening. I'm joined tonight by Renee Gruby, the Executive Director for Library, Recreation, and Cultural Services, who's our exec lead for Oregon 22, and Colette Ramirez, who is the lead for the Eugene Riverfront Festival. And I'm Stephanie Scaffa, the liaison for the World Championships event. Please bear with me while I share my screen. Wonderful. So tonight, we have some fun things on the agenda. So the purpose of this meeting tonight is to get everyone on the same page in regards to planning and preparations for next summer. Tonight we'll be reviewing high-level goals for the Oregon 22 event, along with general information and updates, an overview of the Eugene Riverfront Festival, which is the city's major contribution to the overall resident and visitor experience, citywide activations in the works for the next year, and then next steps for the coming months. To begin, we'll start with Oregon 22's overarching goals. We know that Eugene is celebrated as the heart and home of track and field in the USA across the world, building off our moniker of Tracktown USA. The Oregon 22 team is made up of national and international colleagues, and the piece that shines through continually as we work toward planning for this event is the importance that Eugene has on the world stage to be the US leader in this sport. Oregon 22 has shaped their planning and programming approach to meet the needs of the world that we are in right now. That is, the world is a different place than it was 3 years ago. It requires fresh and innovative approaches on how to deliver an event like this in a smaller community. The LOC is working with many local, regional, and state partners to make this event a success for both Eugene and Oregon. And there is an awareness that events of this caliber must do things differently to achieve goals of all stakeholders. And just a quick reminder that LOC stands for Local Organizing Committee. The event organizers pivoted significantly with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. They stayed nimble and used the extra time to realign the vision and goals for the event with community partners at the table. Listed here is sort of the overarching behind the scenes planning that has occurred over the gap from this event being in 2021 to now being in 2022. Listed here are the 4 big goals. At the end of the event, we will have organized an unmissable heart and home world championship event, prioritized the unity of diversity and world participation, maximized visibility and digital engagement to achieve record-breaking media exposure, and optimized resources and partnerships to achieve outstanding results as effectively as possible. And then from those big goals stem 6 strategic initiatives. And this is really where the key planning efforts lie with this team. So their 6 strategic initiatives are to build a strong brand, deliver unique experience, build a dynamic team, drive change, especially within the realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion and environmental sustainability, engage partners across all platforms, and digitally transform this event so that it's accessible digitally in many, many areas. I want to share a synopsis of the Oregon 22 brand strategy with you all so that we have a collective shared meaning behind their approach. We'll start to see more and more of the community dressed in quotes of these colors. And I think it's important to know the intention behind this approach as we all have an opportunity to serve as community ambassadors during this event and understand the meaning that they're really trying to get at. So starting with the red, the smallest rib of this structure, and these are really reminiscent of the ribs of Hayward Field. The smallest rib is representative of Hayward Field, and it's closest to the beating heart of the venue and the community, as well as the volunteers and athletes competing there. The green honors the state's lush natural resources and eco-conscious culture. It represents the state of Oregon, the city of Eugene, University of Oregon. The blue represents the nation and youth and everyone who participates in the sport of track and field. I will mention this later, but also mention it now that Team USA is the #1 world team in track and field, and it will be competing on home soil for the very first time in this event. And lastly, the purple is the outermost and largest rib, representing the scale of the world audience and celebrating diversity. This color speaks to the prestige of the event and the quality of the athletes who will attend. I'm going to show a short video that showcases kind of all these aspects coming together and giving an overview of the event itself.
My journey began in Oregon,
where athletics is woven into the landscape.
a landscape of endless natural beauty. My career has taken me
Around the world.
but I always come home to Hayward Field. It's the home of Track and Field USA.
A glorious, legendary venue reimagined by athletes for athletes.
A stadium whose heart beats for track and field.
A stadium that will soon be the home of the 2022 World Athletics Championships. Athletes
From more than 200 nations
and thousands of fans from around the globe
are coming for a once-in-a-lifetime experience for the first time on U.S. soil.
The world's greatest track and field stars are Hayward bound.
For world records.
For the fans.
For gold and glory.
And for the world's most prestigious track and field event.
See you at our home in 2022.
It's always hard to follow that video. So I'll just reiterate some key things to know. And I think these are really just things we want the whole community to know as we move forward. This event is taking place July 15th to 24th, 2022 at Hayward Field. 10 full days of competition. Those 10 days will showcase the best of the world's athletes in actions across track and field, marathons, and race walks. The World Athletics Championships have showcased the greatest athletes on earth since 1983. The Oregon 22 event is the 18th edition, and it marks the first time that this event will be hosted on US soil. Previous cities have included Doha, London, Rome, Athens, Berlin, and Beijing, and many more. Over 2,000 athletes representing over 200 nations will travel to Oregon to compete for the title of world champion. And this is the chance for the world's most dominant track and field team to finally get to compete at home. There will be a global media presence and coverage of the event, reaching an audience of over 1 billion people over the course of 10 days and broadcasting more than 6,500 hours of television coverage. So with that high-level information and key things to know, I want to share some current updates on the event in real time. So to begin, the team has launched their ticketing campaign, and that's going well. Over 100,000 tickets have been sold. There will be an additional ticketing campaign push this February. If you've looked at the full 10-day schedule, you'll know that there are no off days. Rather, every day has at least one session, whether it's a morning session, an evening session, or a road event. Oregon 22 launched a Get Involved campaign last fall. This includes all the ways members of the community and visitors can get in on the action. Perhaps the biggest need right now is the push to recruit volunteers for both inside and outside of the stadium, who will be part of what they're calling Crew 22, which is the name of their volunteer program. The application process for volunteering is currently live and lives on Oregon 22's website. Another way for youth across the state to become involved in the event is through the Making Tracks Youth Engagement Program. Making Tracks provides the necessary curriculum and structure to connect directly with schools throughout the state. It engages all school-age children of Oregon in championships. It celebrates cultural diversity, the history of track and field, and healthy active lifestyles through sport. This program has a number of free resources that any educator or anyone affiliated with youth programming can download for free from the Oregon 22 website. And then lastly, the other major way local folks can get involved is that there's a current call out for food and beverage vendors, as well as entertainers, to apply to become a vendor within the event footprint. Oregon 22 is especially seeking food trucks and artisans to apply to be part of the experience. And this information is also listed on the Get Involved website. And so the next updates involve road events and sustainability. I'm going to advance the slides and get into those a little bit more. So the road events include the marathon and race walk portions of the event. And these events provide us the opportunity to showcase the beauty and history of Oregon through the landmarks and landscapes of Eugene and Springfield. We are very lucky that the organization that's been contracted to lead all aspects of the marathon and race walk portions of the championships is our very own Eugene Marathon crew. Their involvement in planning for the road events gives us local organizers a truly unique opportunity to tell the stories of our region. So here's an overview of the marathon course with landmarks noted. This is a 14-kilometer loop course, a total of 3 loops for the race. You'll see here all of the neighborhoods that are going to be impacted by the road events, specifically the marathon. Our Human Rights and Neighborhoods team, as well as University of Oregon and Oregon 22, are taking a coordinated approach in notifying all the neighborhoods that will be impacted. And we're in the process of connecting with them directly to let them know how they can be involved, both from a celebration standpoint, but also to ensure ease of communication and getting in and out of the neighborhoods when they take place. Eugene Marathon leads have put together an incredible storytelling opportunity for the thousands of broadcasters who will be in town for this event. As you saw from that map that I just showed, where the course goes through, the stories that they're essentially going to be giving to broadcasters are about these key landmarks. So Autzen Stadium and the story of US college football, Alton Baker Park, Eugene's incredible park system and open space areas, Prees Trail and the history of our running community, the Willamette Natural Area and the Kalapuya Talking Stones, speaking to the indigenous cultures of this area, the Willamette River and all the river means for this entire state and our whole community. Downtown Springfield, telling the story of Main Street Springfield. Then leading into the area of the giant sequoias and the timber industry in Oregon. And then lastly, ending on MLK Jr. Boulevard, talking about the US and civil rights. Here's an image with the course numbers marked, and I'll just linger here for a moment so you can take a closer look at the mile markers. The green and the red diamond shapes are the start and the finish at Autzen Stadium. And then the race walk is a 1 kilometer course that loops along MLK Boulevard, shown. A lot of loops. And then I wanted to show these schedules. These are all available on the timetable on Oregon 22's website, but just so you have an idea of when these things are happening. So the race walks start on day 1 of the championships, which is Friday, July 15th. You could see there the women's 20K, men's 20K, and then the last ones are on day 8 and 10 for the 35K. And then the marathon is, men's is Sunday, July 17th, 6:15 a.m. start time, and women's marathon, Monday, July 18th, also 6:15 a.m. start time. And then the last update, just, you know, outside of road events, is the team at Oregon 22 has contracted with Bring Recycling to deliver all the event sustainability services for inside the event footprint. And as you all know, Bring is an incredible community partner that has the ability to build upon previous successes in sustainability and sustain Eugene's reputation as a leader in sustainability, really not only in Oregon, but in the nation. This event is truly a collective partnership between the Oregon 22 LOC and all of the partners listed here. The city is playing a key role to ensuring the success of the event in regards to how we are activating the entire community and ensuring that we leverage the event to meet overarching community goals and launch us into our future. The key partners here, I'll just start at the top. World Athletics, this is the global organizing body for the sport. They were formerly known as the IAAF. Oregon 22 Local Organizing Committee has a local team on the ground made up of local and international experts in planning championships. The University of Oregon, key partner as the host of the event. Travel Oregon is the statewide marketing partner for the event. We're working closely with the city of Springfield, Traveling County, and then the regional destination management organizations to deliver on the event. And then USA Track and Field as the national partner in this sport. A major goal for this partnership work is to create a never before experienced city celebration in Eugene. Some of the most exciting aspects of this work are figuring out how to best utilize this platform to celebrate the cultures that make up Eugene and utilize partnerships to make this a welcoming, multicultural celebration. Oregon 22 wants both visitors and the people who live here to participate. As you can see, we're exploring all the different ways people can get involved and be part of this community-wide celebration. And this is a good segue before launching into the city's primary role in this event to briefly show the operational organizational chart that we have for how our staff are plugging in to support Oregon 22. This is also planning for broad community engagement opportunities so that we authentically activate the whole community next summer. Shown here are some of the different work areas where the city is supporting the event. So we're trying to streamline as much as possible and use all the things we've learned from hosting big track and field meets in the past to ensure continuity planning and providing local expertise in specific key areas, things like public safety, transportation, and community engagement. And all of this information now sets us up to talk about the city's primary role in the event, and that is planning the Eugene Riverfront Festival to coincide with the 10 days of the championships next summer. One key aspect we knew going into the planning of the championships was that there was not space within the University of Oregon footprint to accommodate a free and accessible fan festival as part of the championships, much like the community has experienced with previous Olympic track and field trials. So knowing this, city leadership decided years ago that the most important way our community can be part of the celebration is to host a separate but affiliated event that is free and allows for full community participation and access on the new Eugene Riverfront to showcase our newest neighborhood and connect the championships with our downtown core. The goals of the Eugene Riverfront Festival are to celebrate Eugene and Oregon as a showcase for artists, outdoor and sport enthusiasts, and vibrant communities, amplify and explore the unique identities of Eugene and Oregon while instilling civic pride, celebrating community, and creating and building a sense of belonging, serve as the primary experience hub during Oregon 22 to welcome residents, visitors, athletes, anyone traveling here, anyone who lives here to come and experience our place. And then provide interactive opportunities inspired by global cultures represented at Oregon 22, an opportunity to both welcome and inspire the world with all that Eugene has to offer. We look at this as a turning point in our community's overall economic recovery as we work our way through the pandemic, and be the cornerstone of a never before experienced city celebration in Eugene. The city posted a request for proposal to find an event production company that has the same commitment to our values of access, equity, and sustainability. We landed on Revere Event Experience, a company based in Portland and Eugene, who has the skill set needed to deliver on the goals set forth in the festival vision. Revere works directly with these other two companies shown here, AHM Brands, which is a local marketing firm for the creative elements, as well as Kilowatt One to deliver the event sustainability elements. These are companies that leverage their local and statewide ties to ensure maximum benefit to Eugene and Oregon. We have a wide variety of partners who are assisting in making this event truly a one-of-a-kind community success. I'm going to go through each of these groups here. The festival advisory team includes all major agencies that can help get the word out to various constituents and partners to make this a one-of-a-kind event in the entire community. This includes numerous community leaders who have a huge reach in our community. The sales support team is assisting Revere's corporate sales lead with local, regional, and statewide contacts and connections to ensure Oregon-based industries are showcased in the footprint. In addition to many of the partners listed in the advisory team, this also includes leads from Business Oregon and other regional industry groups. The marketing partners are from Travel Lane County and Travel Oregon to ensure that we are aligned on the event's branding and overarching messaging and storytelling, and have some affiliate messaging with the Oregon 22 championships. As you know, the city's Intergovernmental Relations Committee prioritized a $1 million statewide ask for the festival as part of the city's organizational priorities for this year. The city's IGR manager, Mayor Vinnis, and City Manager Maderi are working with local legislators to advocate for this in the upcoming legislative session. And lastly, our cultural services team used the climate team's equity model, panel model to create an equity panel specifically for engaging diverse communities in an authentic way in the festival. This is truly the cornerstone of the Riverfront Festival. We know that we have an opportunity to make this a robust and meaningful experience for all Eugenians and authentically welcome guests while also celebrating who we are. As you can see here, the equity panel is being integrated into all the operational aspects of the festival, with members from the equity team infused into all of the working groups that are part of the overall development of programming and sponsorships. As Eugene welcomes the world, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to not only welcome visitors, but to celebrate the diversity of cultures here in Eugene and ensure that, those who don't always have a seat at the table have a chance to be part of the planning process to help us ensure the festival is a place where locals and visitors feel like they belong. We all feel a sense of belonging when we're surrounded by people, food, and culture that's familiar. I'm excited to share that we received over 30 applications to fill the slots we had available for our equity panel. And the people who ultimately were chosen, or the organizations who were chosen, are listed here. The way the equity panel is set up, we had selected representatives from 9 organizations that can speak to the experience and aspirations of diverse and historically marginalized communities in the Eugene area. They are going to meet monthly to build relationships and inform key planning aspects of the event. Participating organizations are awarded funding of $1,250 to serve on the panel because of their expertise and lived experience. Some of the objectives of this panel will be to listen to the needs, goals, and aspirations of these communities, integrate those themes into our festival, foster partnerships by communicating clearly the entry points for involvement, ultimately informing and building relationships for cultural services as we continue to plan community events moving into the future. Provide an opportunity for input and guidance on programming themes inspired by local and global cultures, specific festival activations, and vendors, as well as artist opportunities. And then in partnership with Revere, communicate clearly and transparently on the influence of panel members' recommendations and on the final program schedule, contracted vendors, and marketing. So this is kind of the last part of the presentation. So I'm going to talk briefly through the site plan. I'll kind of preface this by saying this is a draft plan. And so I want to show you what Revere is planning right now with the help of all of these partners that I'm talking about, in how we're thinking about the site and how we're going to use it, just to start like getting the ideas flowing. And knowing that it's going to change as the months continue and we really kind of hone in on who the sponsors are and where all the things are on the site are going to take place. So just from this map here, so I'll direct your attention to the map on the right, which I'm sure you've seen a lot. So the blue areas and the plaza and the Riverfront Park, so lots 8, 9, 10, the plaza and the Riverfront Park are really where we're looking at the bulk of festival activities taking place on those parcels. And so, let's see if you can see my cursor on the picture on the left, you can sort of see that it's this area in here. And so we've put the maps up, zoomed in so that you could kind of see what we've got going on here. So here's a pretty zoomed out version. I'm going to come back to the overarching goal of access. This festival is going to be a free community experience that anyone can attend. You can see that this is such a unique opportunity to welcome people to this part of the river and to connect with our downtown core. A key piece of this festival will be to provide access to the live feed of what's happening inside Hayward Field to make that direct connection back to the event. We want to make sure there's some level of continuity there. I'll also note that this is our community's opportunity to connect back with what's happening both with the event and with the state in terms of showcasing the best of Oregon as well. Travel Oregon has invested $100,000 in the festival in funds to be part of their overall contribution to our vision. And Revere is actively working toward corporate sponsorships to really think through how to best showcase Oregon industry. So I want to zoom in a bit and give you just a kind of a sense of what's being planned. So you'll see here, this is lot 6, lot 7, and lot 8. And I told you that lot 8 and 10, and then the park and the plaza and 9 are the ones that we're really looking at using. So we're thinking that the 5th Street entrance is really like the entryway into the whole space. We're looking at lot 6 for bike parking, entry arch coming in from 5th Street in toward the river. We have a very cool idea for some legacy murals under the viaduct open space. And here's some ideas for kid zone planning and where we would envision that taking place. Then this next photo is a little more zoomed in, kind of moving south down the site. This is lot 9. And so another very cool idea for a zip line situation. Artisan alley and sponsors, food and beverage vendors, shade zone, just knowing we need some like calm shaded space for people to come and spread out, be safe and outside, but also have a place to go. Thinking that we'll use the park for some different types of activities like spoken word or smaller gatherings, some partner hospitality ideas. And then the main stage here, just north of the steam plant. That's kind of the plan right now. So that's what I've got on the site. And so all of that is, it's really coming together and quickly, and it's very exciting to work with Revere and to see them kind of go through the process of like, what are we able to do on the site? What are our constraints? It's a complicated site, complicated event, but we really do have a ton of partners on board helping us along the way, and it's going really well. So some of the things that we have coming up next are just continued partnership building. We have, we're working very closely with Travel Lane County and the chambers in Eugene and Springfield and other partners to ensure that local businesses understand how they can be part of the celebration. Travel Lane County does have a frontline workers training that they'll be launching very soon to get all of hospitality and food and beverage staff kind of at the forefront of having information about the event. There's upcoming intersections that involve just multicultural and international ties, figuring out how we best utilize the folks who represent those groups in our community to plug them in with the event directly. Continued community engagement. We're giving lots of presentations just like this on where we're at in terms of planning and delivering. There's upcoming needs for volunteering. We're working, so we're not aligning directly with the Oregon 22 volunteer program, but we are behind the scenes working with each other to ensure that people know that there's multiple ways they could volunteer throughout the community. Continuing to celebrate businesses and really think about how they can plug in with the festival. And then lastly, really communications. And so we have a intermittent city staff email, and we're going to make sure that we get council on that email distribution list just to keep everybody updated about what's happening in the community, how best people can plug in, how to keep constituents informed, things like that. So that'll be coming this month. And I'm just going to end with my last hype video of how excited the athletes are to come to Eugene.
This is my home track.
This is the place where I'm training.
We are at Green Stadium, a beautiful place to train.
I don't get to have super big track meets in the U.S. a lot, so when I do hear that we're gonna have world champs at Hayward, it's like, yes.
One word that describes Hayward Field, it'd be passion.
Magical. Electrified.
I dream of holding an American flag over my shoulders on U.S. soil.
I'm looking forward to being back there again for the World Championship in 2022.
I am already looking forward to the World Championships in Eugene, Oregon.
The home of track and field.
Eugene 2022.
And obviously in 2022, we're going to feel the glory.
感受荣耀。
Thanks, everybody. I'm just going to open it up for questions.
Thank you so much. It really, you know, I just happened to give a speech last week about how we can be taken by surprise at the things that have happened when we weren't looking, and this feels like that, right? Like all of this work has been going on and we haven't really been aware of how much work has been going on. And I think of some of those early images around the organizational structure for this and how dizzying it was and overwhelming. And so it's really great to see it refined and moving along. So I really, really appreciate that. And I will also say that I really appreciate your plan to begin providing regular updates to counselors, because I think we're now at a point where we really don't want to be too far behind that progress, and that will be extremely helpful. So, so thank you for all of that. And Matt, you have a comment, question?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I have a couple quick questions. And I don't know if I need the answers tonight because I don't want to put you on the spot, Stephanie. But I appreciate the presentation. But when I think back to the heat dome events of 2020, from late June to mid July, and I see the plan to have the Shade Center, it's welcome and I appreciate it. but I caution we might need more than just the one shade center tent. There's nothing by the stage, for example. I want to know what sort of mitigation factors beyond that one shade spot are in place should there be another heat dome event. How many people are we expecting at that Riverfront area? And since my mind's on the public safety in regards to the public wellness, I'm also concerned that we're 7 months away and we're still in the midst of a global pandemic as Omicron rages. What factors are we taking in or can we take in to ensure that attendees are fully vaccinated or masked? There's an entry point you mentioned at 5th Street. Is it a free-for-all entry point, which presents some serious public safety challenges? And I'd love to hear from Chief Skinner at some point about what the plan is, whether it's, if we're having the conversation in a public setting or even privately, because there's some concerns I have about having a wide open free-for-all. A little more managed would give me a little less heartburn. So if you could address those public safety points, it'd be greatly appreciated. And again, I don't want to put you on the spot. If there's anything you don't want to cover tonight, it'd be great to follow up via email or one-on-one.
Great, thanks, Counselor, for those questions. I will answer most of that in a follow-up communication. I could actually just CC everybody so everyone's in the know. But I just real quick, we'll just speak to just the Omicron piece or the COVID piece. We're fully aware of operating in a pandemic. And so I feel like at this point, we are continuing to follow lead agency guidelines, and we're continually pivoting to make sure that we are going to be as safe as possible. We feel really fortunate that these events are happening outside, and we can increase the spread of that site is really huge. Probably going to have around roughly 5,000 people coming through the Riverfront. There will be a secure perimeter around that as well. So I'll follow up with the rest in an email just to get others' voices in the room. But thank you for, I've got all those written down. Thanks.
Thank you. Emily and then Claire.
Thank you very much. What a presentation. I've been wondering what's been going on because we were all geared up 3 years ago for this, and it was like, whoa, we're really busy. So great. I love a party. That's a good job. I really appreciate that it's going to be free for everyone. I think that's critical. Will any of the new construction have started in those other lots? I think it's really cool that we're able to use the construction lots that won't have been started for the celebration. I think that's a nice use of land before we can use it for something else. I'm wondering for costs, how much is the city contributing to the celebration, and how much are we paying Revere? Be interesting to know that. Where are people going to park? I see the bike parking. Some cars will be coming. Pretty much that's it. I'm really excited about it. And the updates will keep me excited about it. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Semple. We know that the lots 3A, 3B, and 3C will likely have some construction started, and they're pretty far in the whole scheme of the Riverfront area. They're farther from the site, so we're working with the developer and the construction teams just to make sure that all of our schedules of load in and load out are aligned and won't conflict. And then as for just parking and other key operational areas, all of those teams are kicking off or have kicked off. And so there will be a full transportation system plan for the city with designated park and rides, huge emphasis on alternative modes of transportation, taking the bus, biking, and things like that. Renee, can I ask you to come on and talk a bit about the funding piece?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Renee Gruby, Library, Recreation, Cultural Services Director. As you recall, several years ago, we set aside or identified $500,000 for this event in the city's contribution. So as you saw in the supplemental budget process, we've been reallocating that, reappropriating those funds as we go. The festival, we seeded it with $400,000 plus $100,000 from Travel Oregon. The remainder of the funding is coming from private partnerships and sponsorships. That is our hopes and plans, as well as Stephanie mentioned, our state funding request that we're working on now. So that's our funding model. I think that was the question. And then I can't recall what Revere is their contract. Can't remember what that number is specifically. We also have there's a formula around sponsorship development that's a part of that contract, but we can get that to you.
One other thing, I'd really like to have more information about the waste management and, what is Bring doing? Can you elaborate on that in the future, near future? This is a big concern. It's coming up fast. There's going to be a lot of food waste, a lot of potential recycling, the potential to use reusable or recyclable containers and so on and so on. Very interested in that. The Sustainability Commission has brought that forward. We're waiting for another work session. So it'd be really cool to know what we're achieving and new things that we're trying out for this. It would be really cool. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Claire, and then Alan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Stephanie and team, for the great presentation. It's like the mayor said, it's like, oh my goodness, there's been a lot going on that we didn't know about. I really appreciate the questions and concerns my fellow counselors raised. And I did have a question about transportation and how we were going to accommodate that. So I look forward to learning more about the transportation management aspect. I thought the promotional materials and the video were very effective. I liked the graphic, which is not always the case for me. I often find graphics like, what is that supposed to mean? So it looks nice, and I appreciate the representation of the colors that you explained. On the Riverfront Festival, I'm very excited by the potential for the work of the equity panel to bring an important dynamic to this celebration and to create a model for future city-sponsored events to do the same. So I think it's a great spread of representation in terms of who is serving on that panel. And since our former Slug Queen didn't mention it, I will. I think there should be a Slug Queen court located somewhere in that wonderful festival if we are highlighting things that are unique about Eugene and Oregon. That's definitely one of them. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Alan, and then Randy.
Yes, that is a unique part of Eugene and a fun part. Well, this is an awesome event. It's really important and a big deal for Oregon and for Eugene in particular. Long planned global event, which doesn't happen very often. Lots of work has been done, lots to come. Good job, Stephanie. I like your presentation. Looking forward to it. Some of my questions already answered about parking and alternative modes and how that's going to be promoted, because that's a constrained area. Getting there by car is going to be a good idea at all. And about Omicron and how that plays into all of this. I'm glad it's outdoors. And then I had a question about waste management as well. Renee mentioned 500,000. That's the cash portion of it, right? Plus there's the staff time that's been working on that, which will pretty substantial, correct? On top of that.
Well, Revere is providing all the staffing for the festival. So the production company is coming out of their contract and their responsibility. Our staff, my salary, Colette's, Stephanie's, the myriad of other city employees that are working in a variety of capacities, that's our contribution as well. We aren't accounting for that. That's a part of our, our job and our day job, so to speak.
But that will be part of our contribution is all your guys' hard work going up to this and the planning and development of this event. So maybe afterwards we can figure out what that is. The other question I had was, right now that area is all dirt. Is there going to be turf, or is there going to be grass planted, or how's that going to work? A dirt field's not the most appealing place to go to. What's that going to look like?
Yeah, Councilors Linka, just letting you know, I'll also address those other things, parking, COVID, waste management, in an email to everybody. But yeah, we're working closely with Public Works and the developer just to make sure that it's seated, graded, ADA accessible, like a good site for actually hosting a festival.
Oh, so it'll be grassed?
That's what we're looking at right now. We actually haven't made the decision yet. And so it kind of depends. The area is so big that it sort of depends on what goes where.
Yeah, well, it could be one of our local attributes. We grow a heck of a lot of grass seed to a lot of people who have hay fever's consternation, but that's one of the things that we do here is grow grass. So that might be a point to point out. Okay, thanks. Good job, Stephanie and Renee.
Okay, Randy and then Mike.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Renee. I'm really looking forward to this. I also appreciate all the questions my colleagues asked. My question's more about downtown and what are the plans to bring order to that area, as well as portions of the West Eugene, West University District. And hopefully whatever we do to kind of bring that to order, we can maintain after this event for our residents.
Renee, I might defer to you for this. I can just say that our downtown team is actively working with us just to make sure that we have a plan in place.
Well, I appreciate that, but I mean, they're working on it right now, and I hear almost daily about pretty scary events going on in our downtown.
Councilor Groves, we are aware of that. We're looking at opportunities to continue to improve our downtown through, the efforts that we're making each year. And I know, we've invested quite a bit in maintenance and security and new loos, and the farmers market is coming on board. We'll also have an Oregon 22 activation, I believe, on the butterfly lot on the other side of the farmers market. So there's going to be increased activity in that area. And so we'll continue to work with Chief Skinner and his team and our ambassadors and others to ensure that everyone experiences a welcoming environment in the downtown. So we're not going to move people, for this event. That isn't necessarily our goal. It's to, continue our good work with our unhoused population and behaviors that aren't acceptable, on a good day, on any day, and that'll be our continued work.
I'm not specifically talking about moving people. I would like to see more of a cogent plan for how we're going to address behavioral problems. I mean, because they are real, they're happening now. A lot of what you said is already what I've heard, but I'm just concerned beyond this event. But I think this is an opportunity to start really addressing some of this. And it does concern me when we're hearing almost daily of things that are still going on. And I just would like to see a plan before everybody arrives here and kind of have a better understanding of what that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and then we have a few second rounds here.
Thank you, Mayor. I couldn't possibly agree with Randy more. I think it'll be very obvious to most of the community members that if we do different things, which I'm fine if we do different things to address issues around some folks' public behavior that we find, a problem, that we wouldn't do normally with the residents who live here, that's going to be pretty obvious. And I think Randy put it very well that we have an opportunity to use this as a way for us to deal with some of those problems more effectively. So I'll look forward to seeing that more organized plan as well. And my question is kind of an odd one. I know that we pitched this idea. I remember when Sarah first presented that stuff, it was like 3 years ago or something, I think, or 4. I can't even remember the first time now. And I know we want to do this event, and I'm looking forward to it. It's been amazingly planned. You guys have done a great job. But it seems as though, and the university is playing a big part of this. My question is more broad and general. Why do we want to do this? Is this a feather in our hat? I mean, what's the motivation for? Why does the city of Eugene want to host this? I wonder if somebody can tell me
Are you asking specifically about why we want to host the festival, or why you would want to host any of our big athletic events?
This event in general. Is it because the university wants to and we're accommodating that? Why do we want to host this?
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons. I mean, I would say initially, it wasn't really driven by the university. It was driven by Tracktown USA, and an effort to really bring life to Hayward Field and bring more and more events and sporting events to Eugene as part of that brand. But I think locally we would look to the economic benefits of that. And Travel Lane County's been really good about trying to put those numbers up front of like, here's what the actual impact is to our businesses, our restaurants, our retail, our hotels. All of that really drives it. But I think there's a whole lot of other things that happen around Tracktown. I know you're not asking about that. I could get into more. I think, there's a lot for, in this particular case, when the World Championships were held in London, for example, everything was branded and owned by IAFF, and it was very much an international flavor and not really a London flavor in the same way. And I think what we're doing here is really trying to highlight Eugene, Lane County, Springfield, Oregon as a place that you would want to travel, that you would want to do business, that you would want to send your kids to school, that you would want to live, work, and play. So I think it's an opportunity to be much more local than those in the past. I could go on and on about the other benefits, but
I agree with you, but I just want to hear somebody else say it before I assert it. But I agree that economic benefits are huge for the people who live here and the people who own businesses here. I think it's fantastic what will be created from this. But I also agree that it will promote our city. And so I'm just asking what I think is a simple question. I hope the answer is yes, we're doing this. Economists' job is to predict future event and future activities based on data. Are we going to predict the impact on new residents moving here based on the promotion of the community that we're doing through this event? Are we going to estimate it or tabulate the effect on increased amount of people moving here?
I have not heard of the data being collected around people moving here. There's been some work that's been done around just sort of the economic impacts, but I don't think in that longer term people are choosing to relocate here data, but we could certainly look into more detail on what's being collected.
I agree that this is one of the, this is a Garden of Eden place to live. And I think we're going to have a unique opportunity to showcase that. I think it's awesome, but I really think we ought to know what the effects are as well, so we can prepare for that. That's our job. So I would strongly hope someone is measuring what they think that is for a future discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 3 counselors wanting a second round, and I just want to point out the time at 6:25, and we do have another topic tonight. So if you have a burning question, and if you could do it very succinctly, that would be great, so that we can get on to Judge Gill. All right, so Alan, and then Emily, and then Matt.
Yeah, it's we've been talking a lot about this event, and that it's a great showcase of our beautiful city and around the globe. The economic impacts will be huge, not only for the time of the event, but afterwards and for a long time coming. The question I had was the plan for around the actual event in Hayward Field, around the stadium, the site control, traffic, and parking management. I know we've been doing regular updates by folks at the neighborhood meetings, especially in the Fairmont neighbors and the South University neighborhood meetings. But if someone could give me a call and give me an update of what the latest plans are, I'd really appreciate that. Thanks. Because I don't want to bore everybody with those details. Most people don't care about. Thanks.
Thank you. Emily, and then Matt.
Thank you. Going back to downtown, I'm really concerned. It's always about downtown, but we will be on a lot of TV cameras around the world, and our downtown does not look good right now. There's a lot of empty storefronts. There's a lot of people on the sidewalks. The planters, many of them are a disaster. This is going to be really challenging to make it look all safe and spiff. And if we can do that, why aren't we doing it already? Because downtown is not a pleasant place. It is not a comfortable place. And I'm the last person who wants to be saying that. But crime is increasing and there are violent things happening. How can we have the world come if we can't get our living room cleaned up? I'm really worried. So this, to me, this is bigger than a festival, which I really want the festival. Thank you.
All right, Matt, final comment.
Great, thanks. I promise I will be brief. In the category of optics and opportunity, I recognize the economic, cultural, community, and connectivity opportunities. But I recognize also that there's an optics wrinkle, I guess. Since the pandemic, 2 years ago, roughly, food insecurity has nearly doubled. Prior to the pandemic, it was around 1 in 9 Oregonians. Oregon State University's research shows it's around 1 in 4, 1 in 5 Oregonians right now are food insecure. I bring it up because we have community partners, in particular Food for Lane County, who might be just the dynamite premier community sponsor. I wouldn't want to take money from Food for Lane County. I would want to help infuse dollars to Food for Lane County. I wonder, Stephanie and Renee, have there been any conversations about, since the event is being billed as free, if there's an opportunity for us to generate some goodwill from the community and maybe frame it as a free with a suggested donation of 3 cans of food, maybe highlighting some of the work that our nonprofit service providers like Food for Lane County do in the community. Are there any conversations in that regard? And if not, can we start to have those conversations? I'd love to hear where we're at in that arena.
Thanks, Councilor Keating. Yeah, we are having those conversations about what does it look like to highlight the best of what we do here and how to leverage all these people coming here for actual dollar donations for the community service organizations that operate here. I'm not working directly with Food for Lane County right now, but we are working with United Way as like a regional human services partner to really think through what the opportunities are for exactly what you just said. So I can share more about that when we have more of an idea of what that could look like. But yeah, right now we're exploring what that is.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to have a second round, Mayor.
Okay, clearly there's an eagerness to talk about a lot of this in more detail. So thank you very much for bringing us up to date. And we all look forward to getting more information and to seeing this develop. So thank you again. Wonderful presentation, lots of information. And with that, I'm going to swiftly move on to our next item, which is an update about the Municipal Court. And I'm just going to turn it right over to Judge Gill.
Mayor Venus, thank you very much. City Councilors, it's good to see you again. Thanks for having me and Eugene Municipal Court here. Again, my name is Greg Gill. I'm the presiding judge for the Eugene Municipal Court. I have with me tonight Sarah Caligari. She is the acting in charge court administrator for the Eugene Municipal Court. She's going to take the back end of this update. I'm going to lead right into 2021. But actually, before I do that, I want to, I know that there are a couple of new counselors here. I want to just touch base quickly on 2020 again and its effect on the court, because I think that ties directly into 2021 and the successes and how the court was able to meet a lot of the challenges that we had. In March of 2020, the court had to completely shut down. As everybody knows, everything pretty much shut down. And from the get-go, we had to try to figure out how to rework court business and try to keep things moving forward. Our traditional dockets, those dockets are the pretrial conferences, jury trials, the out-of-custody arraignments, violation trials, all had to be postponed. And that was back when we didn't know exactly how long this pandemic would last. I think the current thinking was 2 to 3 weeks at the most back then. And so there was a lot of planning, a lot of designing, but a lot of questioning going on.
Judge Gill, can I just interrupt for just a minute? Are you able to see the screens? I wasn't able to.
Yes, I can see the screen. The screen I can see now is March 2020. The courthouse closes its door.
I am so sorry. You kicked right in and I didn't get to double check. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And so, so our traditional dockets closed down, those dockets that I just mentioned. Those are all appearances where most of them are mandatory appearances, where folks are supposed to appear in person physically at the courthouse. And so the consternation was pretty high on how we were going to move things forward. This was the same question that every court across the United States was facing at the same time. At the same time, our specialty courts, our mental health court, community court, a problem-solving docket, and our what we call the 370 program, for those defendants that are found unfit, those programs were thrown into upheaval as well. Service providers that help and contract with the court for those dockets weren't able to provide services. Their doors were closed too. So we were at really big risk of losing contact with our participants and those folks that the court was trying to help by connecting with services and mental health treatment. So 2020 was really that year of trying to explore what we could do as a court, a lot of that organically, to continue the court's mission and uphold whatever constitutional duties that it has. Most importantly, was our jail docket, which doesn't stop for any pandemic, really. We faced adversity there. The Lane County Jail reduced its overall capacity. So what happens at 6:30 in the evening. So the jail reduced its overall capacity and the city of Eugene was reduced to and kept at 15 total beds overall, which presented a huge challenge in and of itself. So in looking at these challenges, as we were able to actually open up and allow folks back into our court, we were faced with capacity issues, meaning only so many people could come into court at once. And so we collaboratively worked with other court stakeholders, defense attorneys, the city prosecutor's office, Eugene Police Department, and other folks that would be on site to figure out how we could most efficiently move the most people through here at the courthouse and get as much work done as possible while keeping everybody safe, while keeping within those lead agency guidelines. And so we slowly built upon what we were able to find as resources. One of the other things that we found was our virtual court. Within a month of closing down, we were exploring virtual options to be able to have folks appear virtually and at least keep some items moving forward. And so that also helped out with a lot of the court business, people who were trying to contact the court to take care of their matters, not necessarily criminal cases, but other parking matters, financial matters, or other questions that they have about maybe the terms of their probation or keeping in compliance with probations or any other matter they would want to reach out and talk to the court about. So that really kind of brings us to the point where I spoke with you last, which was November of 2020. We had really opened up a lot of those options. We had our customer service, I believe at that point, was starting to go through the roof and we were doing a really good job. And then we were leading into this freeze where the court was looking to shut down again. But because of the planning in 2020, we were able to move into 2021 on the other side of the freeze to open up planned dockets, start moving folks in and having their cases heard. And then really the symbol of us being able to move forward was in March 2021, when we were able to start resuming our jury trials again, which is such a huge deal because it's a point where the court is mandating that 50 potential jurors, along with attorneys, defendant, judges, court staff, all be in a small space or a relatively small space. So we had to be able to figure out the way to do that safely, succinctly, and be able to allow these cases to be heard and tried. And we've been able to do that since, but for the small surge that we had in July and August, which we were able to handle. But really, what's come out of 2020 and into 2021 is the ability to have robust dockets, to have full collaboration with our court stakeholders, to be able to continue to have cases heard, and to make sure these doors to access to justice stay open and allow folks to find finality to their cases are really the silver lining to the pandemic. And it's actually a huge lining, or the things that came out of and what we really fully explored in 2021. Number one being our virtual docket. I mentioned that a little bit in my last update to you all. But our virtual docket has really become our third courtroom. We have virtual hearings 5 days a week. And it's a place, really, it's a docket of requirements. So folks that aren't able to appear in the courthouse for whatever reason, whether it be pandemic or offsite for other reasons, can have their matter heard, whether it's a change of plea in a sentencing or an arraignment, whether it's a violation trial where someone's having their day in court, so to speak, and they've chosen to do it virtually. It's been a huge resource that we've been able to draw on. And in fact, between January 1st and December 31st of 2021, we had over 1,100 virtual settings. So 1,100 virtual dockets, virtual cases heard with over 2,140 different violation types or different cases. So that's really a big chunk of what the court sees on a daily basis. And these are all folks that didn't have to appear in person. Another silver lining was the ability for folks to contact the court and not have to actually appear in front of a judge to be able to do it here physically at the courthouse. The court staff did an amazing job of putting together different ways to be able to contact different staff members through the online resource, to be able to ask questions about their matters, to be able to get pointed in the right direction, to find out the information and to take care of their matters as they needed to. And so I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest, I had to set a timer to make sure that I was in compliance with what we're doing here tonight, and my screen on my phone went dark. So I'm shooting, I might not go over, I might be short, but what I want to make sure that I end with before we go to Sarah to talk about now and moving into 2022, and then take questions from council, of course, is just to let you know that none of what we've been able to see in 2021 as far as our successes and being able to handle the challenges that we've seen at our courthouse, if it wasn't for our court staff. These folks really showed a fortitude that was amazing. Their mettle really kept us going through these really hard times. And if you've seen the angst at grocery stores and banks and restaurants and other places, folks are pretty COVID tired. And that doesn't necessarily change when they walk into a courthouse. And so these folks have been able to put together and innovate on their own ways for folks to have their matters heard, to make dockets move efficiently, make sure that everybody stays safe, and to be able to answer all the questions and address the needs of defendants that move through here, attorneys that are appearing on our court. And that's both in our out of custody dockets, that's in our jail docket, which is also remote now, and any sort of time or anytime anybody contacts the court to try to have their matter addressed. So with that, and not knowing where I am in time, I'm going to cut that short. I'm going to hand this over to Sarah Caligari. Just a quick introduction for her. She has experience in the Lane County Circuit Court, in the Deschutes Circuit Court, as well as administrative side of treatment programs and drug courts. And so she came to us a while back as our specialty docket supervisor and stepped into the role as acting court administrator, and she's been doing a wonderful job since then. So Sarah, take it away.
Thank you, Judge Gill. So I'm going to just jump right into where we are now and some goals for the future. Over the past months, we have been collaborating, training, and working towards the goal of getting our dockets back to pre-pandemic calendar. I'm excited to say that as of January 18th, the court will go live with a new calendar of dockets, making this first goal to happen. This will get us back to pre-pandemic service with the addition of the virtual docket. As Judge Gill just spoke about virtual docket, it is a huge piece of what's led to success of the courts being open during the pandemic. With the continuance of the virtual docket, we will continue with to help reduce delays in court proceedings and improve public access. Remote appearances have led to reduced travel and daycare costs and time off work. It has also allowed for anxiety of trauma issues surrounding the courtroom to be greatly reduced. In addition, virtual options have opened opportunities for court specialty docket staffings and appearances in time when our provider resources are limited. I'm going to jump into goals for the future, which is really exciting. With the addition of our first floor courtroom, we'll be adding more docket capacity. This will allow the court to hear more cases, which assists with the influx of filings, timely resolution of cases, and clearance of backlog. This will allow for an increase in pretrial hearings and violation trial scheduling. The first floor. One of the CSI package commitments was to add space to the courthouse. With the addition of this first floor, we can meet this commitment. The first floor will include our new courtroom, which will house our specialty dockets and the Springfield Jail transport. Moving the Springfield Jail transport to the first floor increases safety of the inmates, officers, and court staff. Currently, an emergency exit and outdoor staircase is utilized to access the second floor, which possesses ADA setbacks and inclement weather safety concerns, as well as officer safety. The first floor design has entered and exit points accessible for the secure garage and allows the inmates to secure in a safe, predictable manner. This increases overall safety for everyone in the building and takes away unknown variables. The first floor remodel also includes office space that will house our specialty court clerks, community court case manager, and will leave room for continued growth. Lastly, and one of the most exciting additions is the community court provider room. As Judge Gill mentioned, I am the specialty court supervisor normally, while I'm not acting in capacity as the court administrator. And this is really exciting. This will free up space to the library. It'll open the possibility for additional availability to the community, and it'll allow for efficiencies that come with being on site. Judge Gill mentioned the staff, and I just lastly want to say that we wouldn't have gotten through the pandemic without them. They've showed how incredibly adaptive and resilient they are, and I just want to make sure that that's noted. Thank you, and we can open it up for questions.
Thank you so very much. It's compelling, and I know there are going to be a lot of questions, so I won't take up time. But I am really struck by the learning curve of 2020 and how that has contributed to what you did in 2021, and set the court up to reopen in such a robust way in 2022. So that's very, very exciting and encouraging. So thank you both very much. And with that, I have Mike, then Randy, then Claire. Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it very much. And Sarah and Your Honor, I appreciate the presentation. I want to first say how impressed I am with both of you to reform a very rigid system into something that works during a really difficult time to do that. I can't imagine the job of trying to conduct court and make sure everybody's rights are protected and all the rules are followed, and at the same time completely alter how you do it. So good on both of you for that. Judge Gill, you, I think the last time we saw you this last year, I may have asked you at the time, I'm pretty sure, if you thought we could use access to, from a budgetary standpoint, more jail beds, rented or otherwise. You just mentioned access to 15. At the time, you said you thought you could utilize what you had pretty well, but you didn't know if you needed more. Is your opinion different on that question today?
I think it's necessarily different. That's a great question, Counselor Evans. And so to remind everybody, last time we chatted about this was a couple years or 2019, I believe. And it was a great question then, and it's a great question now. And of course, a lot of water is under the bridge since then. Back then, we had a contract with the Lane County Jail where we were guaranteed 15 beds, but then any extra space that the Lane County Jail had would be taken up by Eugene Municipal Court folks. And so rarely were we limited to those 15 beds. In fact, a lot of times we would have 30, more than 30 of folks, maybe a little bit south of that, at the Lane County Jail. And plus we had the Springfield beds available as well for pretrial holds and for sentencings. And so by managing those jail beds and making sure that we're really paying attention to those beds, there were CBRs, what's called a CBR, a capacity-based release, which means there's no room at the jail, and so the jail starts to release folks, both Lane County inmates as well as Eugene inmates. And it was seen as a potential problem, but it was we still were able to do court business for the most part. You fast forward to today, 15 beds is not enough. And the reason is not only just because, 15 beds may not be enough in general, but with this pandemic, we have seen an upsurge in behavioral and mental health issues like I have never, ever known. And the amount of folks that are coming in and going out of the jail is, I don't know of another term, but it's huge.
And you say, I apologize for the interruption. You mentioned a couple of the environmental factors today. Would you say that P2P meth is a part of that?
Well, without being out there and seeing it on my own, I've read enough to say, I would say yes. I don't see how it couldn't be. Just with the advent of what I've seen in the court, especially during the jail sessions, and the way P2P is supposed to present and how that's different than what we've seen from traditional methamphetamine production, that is fairly consistent with what I have read about. The folks that are dipping into psychosis and staying in psychosis for a long time, those folks who haven't been using for very long, those folks who have had somewhat of a stable history, all of a sudden being thrown into this vast instability, I suppose is a way to say it, is profound. And that adds to what was probably already a building mental health crisis. So you mix the methamphetamine, the P2P, the advent or the onslaught of that with all the other trauma caused by what I believe is caused by the pandemic, especially trauma from being unhoused and other circumstances that folks are dealing with on a daily basis. And we just see a huge uptick. So that's a long answer to your question, which I think is yes. But again, I don't know that for sure.
From what I've read, I would say we're experiencing more of a P2P meth epidemic than I think most people are aware. I don't think they understand the scope and the size of the problem. Is our drug court equipped to handle it, in your opinion? Or could you use more resources, or what do you need for it to handle it better?
That, again, a very good question. And so we're in a very unique spot as a Eugene Municipal Court, or a municipal court for the city of Eugene. I think we handle things differently than a lot of other towns do. But what's explicit in Oregon statute is that the drug charges go through the circuit court. Measure 110 came down and reduced a lot of the lower level drug offenses to violations, what they call e-violations. And those are also still continuing to go through circuit court. So we don't have a drug court per se, just because we don't have drug charges that come through our court. Now, that being said, a lot of the folks that are charged with violations of the Eugene Municipal Code on the misdemeanor level definitely fall into the category of having a substance abuse problem. I have no problem putting that out there. And so with our approach, right, as an example, of mental health court, last year we were able to start working with Laurel Hill, who's provides a dual diagnosis treatment. They've partnered with Emergence to be able to tackle the substance abuse piece and the behavioral health and the mental health piece all at the same time, which really, surprisingly, wasn't happening all that often, where folks just didn't have the ability to do that. local providers doesn't have the ability to couple those two things together. In our community court, we also, of course, have treatment providers, both mental health as well as substance abuse. But really the charges that come through our court that are connected with potential drug use, we try to identify that drug use and use that and identify that as being a potential root of the criminal activity of it first. But we don't have that traditional drug court as a specialty docket. We've formed our dockets kind of around that.
Would more jail beds help with that issue specifically?
I think more jail beds would help with all of the problems that we're facing all around. I don't think, and I've said this before, and I'll stick by it, I don't think that jail beds are just simply the answer. It's kind of like throwing a lot of money at something and saying that's going to be the answer. If you have a deliberate, methodical, well thought out approach on what you have and how you use it, I think you're going to make a much bigger impact on the folks that you serve than increasing one thing or another. If we had more jail beds, I would use those just as thoughtfully and just as deliberately as we use them right now. But I will tell you that the number of folks that are being released that I do have concerns about being released are up.
Yeah, I agree. It's not the only answer, but acting in a shortage can be a problem. And that's what I want to address if I can in my role. The other piece is this. There are several cities who, as of the last year or two, have begun to ask their nonprofit providers to check in every morning and say, we have X number of beds, emergency beds or otherwise, for homeless available today, so that the officer has a ready report every morning for the purposes of Martin v. Boise. How would you address that if we had that kind of data of there are available beds, thus allowing our officers to address the issue differently? I'm not asking you how you would rule. I'm asking you about your thoughts on that, the requirement that we ask folks to, in order to receive funding, to maintain a daily database of their available beds.
Councilor Evans, another really good question. And I'm not trying to dodge the question, but in my role of trying to remain neutral and make a rule of law and the facts as they come in front of the court, I can't throw out an opinion on what sort of system the Eugene Police Department or Springfield Department would use in order to make sure that they adhere to the Boise decision and how it applies or would apply to our court. If someone were to be charged with something, what I would do is make sure that the prosecution and any of the defenses were well laid out to make sure that the decision, if someone were to be held accountable, was the right one.
Would it be a useful tool for the purposes of data presented in your court?
Would it be useful as a data point? I'm not sure how to answer that, but I will tell you my initial thought is, and I would love to continue the conversation, but my initial thought is that as a data point or a series of data points, I would really be interested in how many extra beds were there, if there was a bed count, how that might correlate with the actual charging of particular crimes, whether it's criminal trespass or other violations of the city code, and whether more beds could prevent more charges from being filed, and what kind of extrapolation you could have, valid extrapolation you could have, marrying up more beds or available beds with the actual commission of potential crimes. That would be my knee-jerk answer to that question, but otherwise, I'm not sure if I'm in the right role.
Thanks again, guys, to both of you.
Councilor Clark, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Randy and then Claire.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Your Honor, and Sarah. I appreciate the presentation. Judge, I've really appreciated the meetings I've had with you and the tour. I think you're doing some incredible things, you and staff down there at the Muni Court. I've also been meeting with the sheriff, as you know, toured the jail twice, and trying to really understand how all the pieces fit together, which I think is really important before we start addressing some of the solutions. Now, I recognize we don't have a drug court currently, but how are some of the other restorative justice programs working as far as helping with some of the capacity issues?
Well, Councilor Groves, getting back online with some of our specialty dockets, I'm not sure that there's enough time in there to be able to say how they've been able to address our the really truncated number of beds, jail beds that we have. So, and that's a great question. But what I will tell you is that there is a movement afoot, and I believe we've chatted about this too, to try to address folks who are in crisis, that may be presenting in crisis because of substance abuse or mental health crisis or behavioral disorder, to divert them from actually having to go to the jail. And that would be part of a larger crisis system. It's part of a group that I've been talking with and working with for a little while now, just because there has to be a lot of recognizing this on the front end, a lot of prevention, as opposed to trying to catch something once it gets to a jail bed.
Right.
And I would, again, in also addressing Councilor Clark's questions, right? The deliberate use of a bed, we call them jail beds, but someone who's taken into custody and held there for any amount of time, using that point in time deliberately to be able to, if they haven't already been diverted, put them in a direction, contact with services, or some other fashion to try to address whatever the underlying problems might be, the underlying matters, to try to keep this cycle from repeating itself, taking away the need for that particular jail bed for that particular person. It's a really tall order, and it's a long time coming, but it's also something that's been recognized, at least statewide. I know that there are summits and a lot of folks talking about it.
I just wanted to add to, Councilor Clark, in addition to the P2P, there's also the fentanyl that's now being placed into so many of the drugs that are out there. So pretty much everything is highly addictive. It's the days of recreational drugs is pretty much a thing of the past. It's a very dangerous business that we have out there, and we need to figure out a way to short circuit that cycle. I personally would be in favor of forming a subgroup or whatever, where we dig into this thing and say, okay, if we were starting over, what would we build? What would the system look like that we built from the ground up? Because I personally think we need more than jail and a hospital emergency department as our two options to transport people through to, and I'll add fire, EMS, and ambulance into that as well. It seems like we need that third door, which is some type of a crisis center that has a mental health piece and a drug piece. And one of the things I found in my tours of the jail, just for my colleagues, is according to the people that work in the jail and the sheriff and the captain over the jail, the people charged with murder that they have incarcerated are not the hard ones to take care of. It's a lot of the people that come out of our muni court that have severe substance misuse disorders, as well as mental health problems that aren't in a position to really regulate their behavior. And when you see this in jail, and I saw signs of people that were just deconstructing, it's not the best way to try and address these problems. It makes them worse. It doesn't help. At the same time, I do believe we need more capacity in our jails. I know we have beds available to us in Springfield, but they have limited scope that they can accept. They have lower parameters. So this is something that I think we need to dig into with a larger conversation. And as I suggested, possibly even a subgroup of elected officials that brings Judge Gill, Chief Skinner, and whoever else we need into the process. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I absolutely agree.
Thank you. Claire.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be brief. I just want to heap some praise on Judge Gill and his team. So thank you, Judge Gill, for your stalwart leadership of our municipal court. I'm very pleased to have you in that role. And I really want to thank the court staff for their dedication to serving the public through a very difficult time that has thrown new challenges at them for the past almost 2 years. I had a chance to tour the court recently and met many of the staff members there. It was great to see the folks who are part of Judge Gill's team and who make this important part of our city service delivery work even under such extraordinary circumstances. So I just really want to express my gratitude for the work of everyone who's part of the municipal court. And for my fellow counselors, if you have not had a chance to visit the court, I highly recommend it. And I look forward to returning to see the results of the remodel. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Judge and Sarah, I think I saw a lot of counselors nodding their heads as Claire was making those comments of praise. So I think we're all in agreement that we're really grateful for the work you do and your agility and creativity and perseverance through a pretty tough time. So thank you all much. And I'm excited. I will be very excited to hear later on in 2022 all of the new things that you're able to roll out and how that looks. And I look forward to our ongoing conversation. So thank you again for your work, for sharing it with us tonight. And with that, we are adjourned until 7:30. Thank you all.
Thank you.